The first time Emma Brooks corrected Matteo Romano, 12 armed men reached for their weapons. Sunlight poured through the tall windows of the private dining room. Striking crystal glasses, polished silverware, and the black marble table where two of the most dangerous families on the West Coast were attempting to prevent a war. Emma stood near the kitchen doorway with a tray of untouched coffee cups balanced against her hip. She was not supposed to be listening. She was supposed to enter quietly, collect the dishes, and disappear before the men in expensive suits remembered that the restaurant employed people who washed their plates. That was what Emma had become good at, disappearing. Her white kitchen shirt was damp near the collar from steam. Her dark apron carried a pale stain from a pan of cream sauce. A loose curl had escaped the knot at the back of her head and rested against her cheek. Nobody at the table looked at her as though she belonged in the room. Nobody except Matteo Romano. He sat at the head of the table in a black suit with no tie, one hand resting beside a closed silver watch. He was calm in the way only truly dangerous men could be calm. The room seemed arranged around him. The guards stood where he wanted them. The rival family spoke when he permitted it. Even the restaurant owner remained near the wall with his eyes lowered. Matteo watched Emma for several seconds before turning toward the man beside him. Victor Salvi wore a charcoal suit and a narrow expression. He had spent the last hour translating between the Romano family and Enzo Bellini, the silver-haired leader seated across from Matteo. Matteo spoke in Italian. The dishwasher is listening as though she expects us to ask her opinion. Several men laughed quietly. Emma stopped beside the table. For one terrible second, the private dining room disappeared. She was back inside a government building 6 years earlier. Men were shouting through a telephone. A frightened young diplomat was trapped behind a locked door. Emma was repeating words that another interpreter had deliberately changed before they reached her. Then came the gunfire. Then the accusations. Then the headlines bearing her name. Emma returned to the present when Matteo looked at her again. His dark eyes held mild amusement. Perhaps she is deciding which plate will be easiest to steal, he added in Italian. The laughter grew louder. Emma set down the tray. Your pronunciation is excellent, she said in the same language. Your manners require more practice. The laughter ended. Matteo did not move. Victor turned toward her so quickly that his chair struck the marble floor. Emma felt every weapon in the room shift in her direction. She should have lowered her eyes. She should have apologized and returned to the kitchen. Instead, she looked directly at Matteo. He had expected embarrassment. What he saw was anger restrained by discipline. Matteo leaned back slightly. You understand Italian. I understand 6 languages. Victor released a dismissive breath. She is lying. Emma looked at him for the first time. His hair was grayer than she remembered. His face was thinner. The small scar beneath his left ear remained exactly where it had been 6 years ago. Her fingers went cold. Victor Salvi, he had used a different surname in Geneva. But Emma would have recognized his voice in a crowded stadium. He had been standing behind her during the hostage crisis. He had been the last person to review the translation before the armed team entered the building. He had watched her career burn while he disappeared. Victor seemed not to recognize her. That frightened Emma more than if he had. Matteo noticed the change in her expression. You said you understand 6 languages, he said. Did you understand what Mr. Bellini offered? Emma looked at Enzo Bellini. The rival leader had spent most of the meeting speaking through his attorney, Carlo Moretti. Only minutes earlier, Carlo had delivered a sentence in a regional Italian dialect before Victor translated it into English. Victor had told Matteo that Bellini was offering peace in exchange for shared control of a shipping route. That was not what Carlo had said. Emma drew a slow breath. He did not offer peace. Victor stood. This woman has no idea what she heard. Emma continued. He said the river remains calm only until the younger wolf drinks from it. Then the water will turn red before sunrise. Matteo's expression became still. Emma looked at him. The younger wolf is your brother. The room exploded into movement. Matteo guards surrounded the table. Bellini men reached inside their jackets. Chairs scraped across marble. Matteo raised one hand. Every man stopped. He looked at Victor. Translate the original sentence again. Victor's face tightened. There is no need. Matteo's voice dropped. Translated. Victor repeated the peaceful version. Emma shook her head. He changed two verbs and removed the reference to dawn. The sentence is not an offer. It is a warning. Enzo Bellini looked furious. He began speaking rapidly in Italian. Victor opened his mouth. Matteo pointed at Emma. She translates. Emma listened. Mr. Bellini says he did not order the threat. His attorney added the sentence without permission. He says someone at this table is attempting to begin a war. Carlo Moretti pushed back from his chair. One of Matteo's guards seized him before he reached the door. Matteo picked up his telephone and called his younger brother. No answer. He called again. The silence on the other end transformed him. The mocking amusement vanished. The cold control remained. But something far more dangerous appeared beneath it. Fear. Matteo stood. Find Luca. A guard moved toward the exit. A burst of gunfire sounded from the street below. Emma flinched. The windows trembled. Matteo crossed the room and pushed her behind him before she understood what he was doing. His body blocked hers from the glass. More gunfire followed. People shouted in the restaurant. One of the guards pressed a hand to his earpiece. Luca Carr has been attacked near the east entrance. He was not inside. His driver is injured. Matteo closed his eyes for a single second. When he opened them, they were empty of everything except command. Lock the building. Nobody leaves. The guards sealed both doors. The bright private dining room became a cage. Matteo turned toward Carlo. Who gave you my brother root? Carlo said nothing. Matteo approached him without haste. Emma had seen powerful men shout before. Matteo did not need to. When he stopped in front of Carlo, the attorney began to tremble. Victor stepped between them. Mr. Romano. The woman has created confusion. She may be working with Bellini. Emma stared at him. He still did not recognize her. Or perhaps he recognized her and believed she remained too broken to speak. Matteo looked from Victor to Emma. Who are you? Emma almost gave him the answer that had protected her for 6 years. A dishwasher. A woman with unpaid bills. A woman who worked behind steam and steel because kitchens did not ask for professional references from foreign ministries. Then she remembered the gunfire outside. She remembered the sentence Victor had changed. My name is Emma Brooks. Victor's face lost its color. Recognition finally arrived. Emma continued. 6 years ago. Victor Salvi used the name Victor Santoro. He was the senior interpreter during the Geneva consulate hostage crisis. Matteo watched Victor. Emma's voice remained steady even when her heart did not. He altered a message from the hostage takers. The response team entered the building because they believed the hostages would be executed immediately. That was not what the original message said. Victor shook his head. She was responsible for that translation. I was blamed for it. Emma looked at Matteo. There is a difference. Victor stepped closer. You disappeared before the investigation ended. Because nobody believed me. Matteo's gaze did not leave Victor. Did she mistranslate the sentence today? Victor hesitated. That hesitation answered the question. Matteo removed a pistol from inside his jacket and placed it on the table. He did not point it at anyone. He did not need to. Sit down, he told Victor. Victor obeyed. Matteo turned toward Emma. Translate everything that has been said in this room. No. The refusal stunned the room more than the gunfire had. Matteo stared at her. Emma lifted her chin. You mocked me because you believed I was too unimportant to understand you. Now that your family is in danger, You expect me to become useful. My brother may be targeted. Then, you should have hired an honest interpreter. Matteo's jaw tightened. Every man around the table waited for him to punish her. Instead, Matteo reached for his chair. He pulled it away from the head of the table and placed it beside Emma. Sit. Emma looked at the chair. Then she looked at him. I do not work for you. Matteo turned toward both families. This woman prevented an attack from becoming a massacre. She heard what every man at this table failed to hear because we were too arrogant to see her. He faced Emma. I insulted you in my language because I believed you could not answer me. His next words seemed to cost him more than any threat ever could. I was wrong. Silence filled the room. Even Emma did not know how to respond. Matteo Romano had apologized to a dishwasher in front of 2 criminal families, his armed guards, and a restaurant owner who looked close to fainting. Matteo pushed the chair toward her. Every word spoken from this moment will pass through you before I sign anything. Emma did not sit. She placed both hands on the back of the chair. There will be conditions. Victor gave a humorless laugh. You are in no position to make demands. Matteo looked at him. She is the only person in this room who is. Emma studied Matteo. She still saw arrogance. She still saw danger. Yet she also saw a man who had placed his pride beneath the life of his brother. That did not make him good. It made him capable of change. Only if he chose it. I want a written contract, Emma said. Every translation will be recorded. I will keep my own copy. Nobody will change my words. Nobody will threaten me. Follow me into my home, or use my history against me. Matteo's expression hardened at the mention of her home. Your safety cannot be separated from this now. My life does not become yours because your enemies learn my name. His eyes held hers. No, your life does not become mine. Something in his voice lowered the temperature of the room. But anyone who tries to take it will answer to me. Emma felt the warning. She also felt the promise beneath it. That frightened her most of all. 2 hours later, Luca Romano was found alive inside an abandoned parking garage. He had seen a strange vehicle following him and switched cars before the attack. The driver who remained behind survived his injuries. Carlo confessed that he had received instructions through an encrypted message. He claimed he did not know the sender. Matteo did not believe him. Neither did Emma. Victor remained under guard while Emma translated the rest of the negotiation. By sunset, she had identified 3 more altered phrases. Each change had pushed the families closer to war. When the final page was placed in front of her, Emma found a symbol in the corner. A small black circle divided by a narrow silver line. Her breathing stopped. She had seen the same symbol on the translated message during the Geneva crisis. Victor watched her from across the table. This time, recognition passed clearly between them. He remembered everything. Matteo noticed. What does the symbol mean? Emma closed the file. It means the person who destroyed my life has been working inside yours for longer than either of us understood. The following morning, 3 black vehicles waited outside Emma's apartment. She stood at the window of her small kitchen and stared down at them while coffee grew cold in her hand. The apartment occupied the upper floor of an aging brick building in southeast Portland. It had uneven floors, narrow windows, and a fire escape that rattled whenever the wind crossed the river. It was not luxurious. It was hers. A knock sounded at the door. Emma opened it to find Matteo Romano standing alone. He wore a black coat over a dark shirt. No visible weapon. No bodyguard beside him. She looked past his shoulder. 3 vehicles seem excessive for a private visit. They are not here for me. I told you not to put surveillance around my home. They are protection. They are men sitting in cars and watching my windows. Matteo studied her face. Someone attempted to kill my brother because you exposed a false translation. Do you believe they will ignore you? I believe fear is useful to men who want control. Something moved behind his eyes. You think I am controlling you. I think you are accustomed to making decisions before anyone has permission to disagree. He entered only after she stepped aside. The apartment seemed smaller with him inside it. Matteo looked at the second-hand furniture. The shelves crowded with language books, and the framed certificates turned face down on the desk. He did not touch anything. Emma appreciated that more than she wanted to. He placed a folder on the table. Your contract. She opened it. Every condition she had listed appeared in precise legal language. She would control the recordings. She could refuse any meeting. Her private residence remained restricted. Her compensation would be paid regardless of whether Matteo accepted her translation. There was one additional clause. Emma read it twice. You included lifetime medical support for the driver who was injured yesterday. He was hurt because the information reached the wrong person. You usually pay for people injured in your wars. I pay for those injured under my protection. Emma looked up. Am I under your protection? Matteo did not answer immediately. You are under the protection of the contract. That is not what I asked. His gaze moved to her mouth and then returned to her eyes. No. Emma waited. Matteo continued. You are under mine. The words should have sounded like ownership. Instead, they sounded like a confession he resented making. Emma signed the contract. Their first official meeting took place inside Matteo's penthouse above the Willamette River. Glass walls overlooked bridges, gray water, and distant green hills. The space was elegant but almost empty. There were no family photographs, no soft furniture, no evidence that anyone had ever relaxed there. A long black table had been prepared near the windows. Matteo waited at one end. Victor was not present. Emma placed her recorder on the table. Where is your interpreter? In a secure room. Alive, Matteo looked at her. You asked that nobody be harmed until the evidence was reviewed. That was not an answer. Yes, he is alive. Emma sat. Matteo remained standing. You do not trust me. I do not trust men who keep secure rooms inside their homes. The secure room is not here. That was not comforting. The meeting began with Luca seated beside his brother. Luca was younger than Matteo by nearly 10 years. He had warmer eyes and none of Matteo's cold stillness. A fresh bruise marked his jaw from the previous day. He smiled at Emma. You saved my life. I translated a sentence. You translated it before my brother started a war. Emma looked toward Matteo. Perhaps I saved several lives. Matteo's expression did not change. That depends on whether Bellini can control his own men. The purpose of the negotiations soon became clear. Luca wanted to leave Portland. He had secretly applied to study architecture in Denmark. Matteo intended to give the Bellini family partial access to the southern docks in exchange for a permanent agreement that removed Luca from every family dispute. Emma listened as the brothers argued. Luca did not want Matteo to surrender territory. Matteo did not care about the territory. The land earned millions each year. But Matteo spoke of it as though it were a broken chair he could throw away. Emma realized the truth before either brother said it. This was not a business negotiation. Matteo was purchasing freedom for Luca. It was the closest thing to love Matteo knew how to offer. After Luca left, Emma gathered her notes. Matteo watched her. You disapprove. Of what? The agreement? I am not paid to approve. Your face disagrees. Emma closed the folder. You are giving Luca freedom without asking whether he can live with the cost. The cost belongs to me. That is what powerful men say when they want to prevent others from sharing their pain. Matteo moved around the table. He stopped close enough for Emma to feel the heat of his body. Do you analyze every employer, only the ones who insult me before asking me to save their families? A faint shadow of amusement touched his face. You remain angry. You remain surprised by consequences. His hand lifted slightly. For one breath, Emma thought he might move the loose curl from her cheek. He stopped before touching her. The restraint was more intimate than contact would have been. Matteo lowered his hand. The next meeting is tomorrow evening. My contract says I can refuse. Will you, Emma? Held his gaze. No. She hated the quiet satisfaction in his eyes. She hated even more that she wanted to see it again. The political engagement between Matteo and Bianca De Luca had been arranged before Emma entered his life. Bianca arrived at the penthouse during the second week of negotiations, wearing a cream suit and a diamond ring large enough to catch light from every window. She was beautiful, composed, and accustomed to being obeyed. Her smile faded when she saw Emma at the table. The dishwasher. Emma placed down her pen. The fiancé. Bianca looked toward Matteo. Why is she wearing that? Emma had come directly from the restaurant. Her dark kitchen pants and plain blouse were clean, but they carried none of the luxury surrounding them. Matteo did not glance at Emma's clothing. She is working. Bianca walked around the table. People who serve food usually enter through the other door. Emma looked at her. People who interrupt negotiations usually wait until they understand the language being spoken. Bianca's eyes narrowed. Matteo leaned back in his chair. Continue. Emma. Bianca turned toward him. You allow her to speak to me this way. Matteo's voice remained calm. I allow her to translate. You chose to challenge her in the middle of it. Emma returned to the document, but the warmth rising in her chest had nothing to do with victory. Matteo had not defended her with dramatic words. He had simply refused to let Bianca reduce her. That should not have mattered. It did. During the meeting, Enzo Bellini proposed a formal dinner to complete the first stage of the agreement. Bianca insisted on attending. Emma expected Matteo to agree. Instead, he looked at Emma. Do you believe her presence will improve the negotiation? Bianca stared at him. Emma chose her words carefully. I believe Mr. Bellini expects your future wife to demonstrate unity. Matteo's gaze remained on Emma. That was not my question. Emma felt Bianca's anger sharpen across the table. No, Emma said. Her presence will not improve the negotiation. Matteo nodded. Then she will not attend. Bianca stood. I am not one of your employees. No. Employees understand when a meeting is finished. Bianca left without another word. The glass doors closed behind her. Emma looked at Matteo. That was unnecessarily cruel. She insulted you. So you insulted her for me. Matteo's expression became unreadable. I removed a distraction. Emma wanted to believe him. The silence between them suggested he did not believe himself. The formal dinner was held in the same private dining room where Emma had first corrected him. This time, she entered through the main doors. She wore a dark green dress borrowed from the restaurant manager's wife. The fabric followed her curves without hiding them. Her hair rested in soft waves across her shoulders. Every conversation in the room paused. Emma had spent years wearing clothing designed to make her smaller. Tonight, she refused to disappear. Matteo stood when he saw her. No one else at the table did. He crossed the room slowly. His gaze moved over her. Controlled but unmistakably intense. You are late. By 30 seconds, I noticed every one of them. Emma's heartbeat stumbled. Matteo seemed to realize what he had said. He looked away first. The dinner proceeded without conflict until a server placed the main course on the table. Emma smelled bitter almonds. She froze. The scent was faint beneath the sauce, but unmistakable. She reached across Matteo before he lifted his fork and knocked the plate to the floor. Ceramic shattered. 3 guns appeared beneath the table. Matteo seized Emma's wrist. What happened? Do not eat anything. A waiter near the door turned and ran. One of Matteo's guards tackled him in the hallway. The private dining room erupted into chaos. A second man pulled a weapon from beneath his serving jacket. Matteo pushed Emma behind the marble bar as gunfire shattered the windows. Glass rained over them. Matteo covered Emma with his body. His hand pressed against the back of her head. His chest shielded her face. Bullets struck the wood above them. Emma heard him giving orders. His voice remained controlled even as the room filled with smoke and screams. When the shooting stopped, Matteo did not move away. Emma became aware of his breath against her hair. His hand remained around her neck, not restraining her, but holding her close enough to prove she was alive. Matteo. He lifted his head. A line of blood crossed his cheek from the shattered glass. Are you hurt? No. He examined her anyway. His hands moved along her arms, her shoulders, and the side of her face. When his thumb reached her lower lip, he stopped. Their eyes met. For one suspended moment, the broken room disappeared. Then one of the guards shouted that the attacker was still moving. Matteo rose. The man reached toward a fallen pistol. Matteo crossed the room and fired once. The sound struck Emma like a physical blow. The attacker stopped moving. Matteo lowered the weapon. When he looked back at Emma, she saw the man beneath the controlled suits and silent rooms. He was not pretending to be dangerous. He was dangerous. Matteo approached her slowly. She could not hide the fear in her face. You are afraid of me. Emma stood amid broken glass. I watched you kill someone. He would have killed you. That does not change what I saw. No. His honesty unsettled her. Matteo removed his coat and placed it around her shoulders. The fabric was warm from his body. I will not ask you to become comfortable with what I am. What will you ask? His gaze lowered to the coat around her. That you understand what I will do to keep you alive. He carried her through the shattered dining room when glass cut through the sole of her shoe. Emma protested. Matteo ignored her. Outside, evening sunlight reflected from black vehicles surrounding the restaurant. Guards filled the sidewalk. People watched from behind police barriers at the far end of the street. Matteo held Emma against his chest as though the entire city had become a threat. Her arms rested around his shoulders. She felt his heartbeat. It was the first uncontrolled thing she had ever discovered about him. At the penthouse, a doctor removed a narrow piece of glass from Emma's foot. Matteo stood near the window throughout the procedure. His face remained expressionless until Emma winced. Then his hand closed into a fist. After the doctor left, Emma found Matteo in the kitchen, pouring water into a glass. You did not need to carry me. You could not walk. I could have leaned on someone. Matteo placed the glass before her. You leaned on me. The words carried something darker than satisfaction. Emma took the water. The poison was intended for you. Matteo nodded. The gunfire was intended for everyone. Do you know who arranged it? Not yet. Emma looked at the folder recovered from the restaurant. A page had been marked with the black circle and silver line. Victor. Perhaps. You still doubt me. I doubt every answer that arrives too easily. She stepped closer. That is what people said when Victor blamed me. Matteo's jaw hardened. The evidence from Geneva identifies you as the final interpreter. The evidence was created by the man you trusted. I do not trust him. You trusted him for years. Matteo looked toward the city. My father hired Victor. After my father died, Victor remained. Emma felt the distance return between them. You believe loyalty transfers with inheritance. I believe history leaves patterns. So do lies. Matteo faced her. What do you want from me? The question held more emotion than his voice revealed. Emma answered, honestly. I want you to believe me before I prove everything. His silence wounded her more than rejection would have. Matteo moved closer. I do not know how. Emma swallowed. That is not the same as refusing. His hand rose toward her face. This time, his fingers touched the curl beside her cheek. The contact was gentle, almost reverent. Matteo lowered his voice. You make suspicion feel like cowardice. His thumb moved along her cheekbone. Emma forgot the city outside. She forgot the contract, the broken glass. and the weapon he had fired only hours earlier. Matteo leaned closer. His mouth stopped inches from hers. A telephone rang. The moment shattered. Matteo closed his eyes briefly before answering. As he listened, every trace of softness vanished. Luca was missing. A black vehicle had taken him from outside his apartment. On the pavement, the kidnappers had left a single page. It contained a message in Italian. Emma translated it twice. The younger wolf has entered the river. Bring the woman who hears what others hide, or his blood will reach the sea. Matteo read the words without expression. Emma saw terror in the stillness of his hands. They want me. They will not have you. They have Luca. Matteo looked at her. I will give them the city before I give them either of you. Emma's chest tightened. You cannot protect everyone by sacrificing everything. Watch me. The search for Luca forced Emma into Matteo's hidden world. She moved from the penthouse to a secured estate outside Portland. Cameras covered every entrance. Guards occupied the halls. The windows were reinforced, and the iron gates could stop a truck. Emma felt protected. She also felt imprisoned. Matteo worked without sleep. Maps, photographs, and shipping records covered the dining room table. He spoke with captains in low voices and sent armed teams into the city. Emma translated intercepted messages. Most were false trails. Victor remained in custody, but messages bearing his linguistic patterns continued to appear. Someone was working with him. On the third night, Emma entered the library and found Matteo alone. He sat in darkness with Luca's childhood photograph in his hand. The picture showed two boys beside a river. Matteo appeared no older than 15. His arm was wrapped around a smiling child with missing front teeth. Emma remained near the door. You raised him. Matteo did not ask how she knew. Our mother died when he was 4. Our father believed affection made sons weak. So you gave Luca yours when nobody was watching. Matteo set down the photograph. Affection did not protect him. It taught him there was something beyond your father world. The darkness made Matteo seem younger and more tired. He looked at Emma. When our father died, Luca asked me whether we were free. What did you say? I told him freedom was expensive. That is why you are surrendering the docks. Matteo nodded. Emma moved closer. What happened to your father? Someone inside the family gave his location to an enemy. Victor translated the message that warned him. Emma understood. Victor altered it. Matteo's gaze hardened. I have wondered about that since you entered the dining room. The same man may have destroyed both of us. Matteo stood. He stopped before Emma. Yet part of me still doubts you. I know. You should hate me for that. Sometimes I do. His hand touched the side of her waist. The contact was careful, almost uncertain. Emma did not step away. What do you feel the rest of the time? He asked. She looked into his eyes. Something more dangerous. Matteo's fingers tightened slightly. His control began to break. Emma felt it in the change of his breathing. He lowered his forehead to hers. I have spent my life removing danger. You cannot remove me. No. His lips nearly touched hers. I think that is why I cannot sleep. The library door opened. A guard entered holding an envelope. Matteo moved away from Emma so quickly that the loss of his warmth felt like cold air. The envelope contained photographs. Emma meeting Enzo Bellini near the river. Emma passing him a folder. Emma entering a vehicle registered to the Bellini family. All of the images appeared to have been taken during the previous week. Emma stared at them. I was never there. Matteo said nothing. The guard placed a recorded message on the table. Emma's voice filled the room. The Romano routes are included. Payment will be transferred after Luca is delivered. Emma felt the floor shift beneath her. That is not my voice. It sounded exactly like her. Matteo listened again. His face became unreadable. Emma looked at him. You said lies leave patterns. He lifted his eyes. They do. Then look at me. Matteo did. Emma forced herself not to plead. Do you believe I sold your brother? The silence lasted too long. Something inside Emma broke. Matteo reached for her. She stepped back. Do not. Emma, my contract says I can leave. Not while the person who created these images is searching for you. You cannot keep me here. I can keep you alive. By locking the gates, Matteo's expression hardened. Until I know the truth. There it was. The familiar suspicion. The same cold judgment that had taken Emma's career, reputation, and future 6 years earlier. She looked at the man she had nearly kissed. You do not know how to trust me. His voice lowered. I told you that. I thought you were trying to learn. Emma left the library. 2 guards followed her upstairs. By morning, Matteo had discovered that the photographs contained altered shadows. The recording had been created from words Emma spoke during negotiations. He went to her room. It was empty. The window stood open. Emma had climbed onto the roof of the lower wing, crossed to the garden wall, and left through an old maintenance gate that did not appear on the security plans. Matteo found the contract on the bed. One sentence had been written across the final page. Protection without trust is only a beautiful prison. Emma reached her apartment shortly after dawn. She knew returning home was dangerous. She also knew she could not breathe inside Matteo's estate. The hallway outside her door was silent. Too silent. Emma reached inside her bag for her telephone. A hand covered her mouth. A sharp pain entered her neck. The last thing she saw was the black circle and silver line tattooed on the wrist of the man holding her. Matteo discovered Emma was missing 14 minutes after she left the estate. Within 20 minutes, every road camera between the property and Portland had been accessed. Within 30 minutes, the guard responsible for the maintenance gate had been removed. Within 40 minutes, Matteo stood inside Emma's apartment. Her bag lay on the hallway floor. One shoe rested near the wall. A drop of blood marked the wooden frame beside the door. Matteo touched it with one finger. Something inside him became silent. Not calm. Silent. Luca had been taken because Matteo's enemies wanted leverage. Emma had been taken because Matteo had failed her. He had looked at forged evidence and allowed doubt to enter his face. He had watched the woman who saved his brother relive the worst moment of her life. Then he had placed guards outside her door and called it protection. Matteo turned toward his men. Find Victor. Victor's cell was empty. A guard had been found unconscious near the rear entrance. The cameras showed Bianca De Luca arriving shortly before dawn. She had used her family access code to enter the secured building. Matteo found her at her father's mansion 2 hours later. Bianca stood in a glass sunroom overlooking the gardens. She did not appear surprised to see him. You should not have involved the dishwasher in matters above her position. Matteo closed the door behind him. Where is Emma? Bianca lifted her chin. Victor said he only needed her to correct a misunderstanding. Matteo crossed the room. The fear in Bianca's face came too late. He stopped close enough that she could see what remained of his restraint. Where is she? Bianca whispered the name of an abandoned church near the northern harbor. Matteo turned away. She reached for his arm. Our families need this marriage. Matteo looked at her hand. Bianca released him. The engagement ended the moment you opened that cell. For her, for the woman, you helped a traitor take from me. Bianca's eyes filled with anger. She is nobody. Matteo's voice became very quiet. She is the only person who ever stood in front of my cruelty and demanded that I become better than it. He walked toward the door. Bianca called after him. What happens to me? Matteo did not turn around. You live with knowing that Emma asked me not to harm people without proof. That request is the only reason you are still breathing. The abandoned church stood near the river beneath a gray afternoon sky. Its stained glass windows had been broken years earlier. Wind moved through the empty frames. carrying the smell of salt, rust, and wet stone. Emma sat tied to a wooden chair beneath the ruined altar. Victor Salvi walked around her with a pistol in his hand. You always were difficult to silence. Emma's wrists burned against the rope. You had 6 years to forget me. I never forgot you. Then why did you pretend not to recognize me? Victor smiled. I wanted to know whether you still doubted yourself. Emma looked at the recorder placed on a table near the altar. Victor had forced her to translate a message addressed to Matteo. The message ordered Matteo to attack Bellini warehouses before sunset. If he obeyed, the city would enter a war. Where is Luca alive? Where? Somewhere Matteo will never find unless he follows my instructions. Emma studied Victor. His suit was wrinkled. Sweat marked his collar. The calm professional mask had begun to crack. You did not arrange this alone. Victor's expression changed. Emma continued. Carlo carried the first threat. Bianca opened your cell. Someone inside the Bellini family supplied the armed men. You believe you understand everything. I understand that you need Matteo and Bellini to destroy each other. Victor stepped closer. When they are gone, the docks will belong to men who understand their true value. The black circle and silver line. Victor glanced at his wrist. A mark used by people who profited from instability. Governments, criminal families, private contractors. The hostage crisis was never about politics. Emma said, it was about a shipping agreement. Victor smiled. The diplomat intended to expose the root. So you changed his message. He would have destroyed men far more important than himself. You killed him. I changed words. Other men pulled triggers. Emma felt the old guilt rise inside her. This time, she refused to carry it. You chose the sentence that sent them inside. Victor's expression hardened. You remain sentimental. No, I remain accurate. A sound came from outside the church. Victor turned toward the broken windows. Black vehicles stopped across the harbor road. Doors opened. Matteo men moved between the abandoned buildings. Victor raised the pistol toward Emma. You told him where we were? Emma looked at the thin metal clasp on her contract bracelet. Matteo had ordered it after the restaurant attack. It contained an emergency transmitter. He had promised it would remain inactive unless she pressed it. Emma had pressed it before Victor removed her coat. Victor followed her gaze and tore the bracelet from her wrist. Too late. Gunfire erupted outside. Victor dragged Emma from the chair and placed the weapon against her side. The church doors opened. Matteo stood in the entrance. Blood marked the shoulder of his black coat. Rain and river mist darkened his hair. A pistol rested in his right hand. His guards waited behind him. Matteo's eyes found Emma. For the first time since she met him, he did not hide what he felt. Fear, relief, rage. All of it belonged to her. Victor pressed the gun harder against Emma. Dropped the weapon. Matteo placed his pistol on the stone floor. Tell your men to leave. Matteo lifted one hand. The guards withdrew from the doorway. Victor laughed. The great Matteo Romano surrendering for a dishwasher. Matteo looked only at Emma. I surrendered the first time she spoke to me in my own language. Emma's heart tightened. Victor pulled her backward toward the ruined altar. Matteo moved one step forward. Victor raised the gun. Matteo stopped. Emma saw his eyes move toward her wrists. One rope had loosened. Matteo noticed. Victor did not. Matteo spoke in Italian. When the church bell moves, fall to your left. Victor smiled. She will not help you. Emma answered in English. Your pronunciation is still excellent. Wind entered through the broken tower. The rusted church bell shifted above them. Its chain struck the stone wall. Emma dropped to the left. Matteo reached the pistol on the floor before Victor fired. 2 shots echoed through the church. Victor fell beside the altar. Matteo crossed the distance between them. He kicked the weapon away and dropped to his knees beside Emma. His hands shook as he untied the ropes. Emma had never seen them shake before. "You came." Matteo looked at the bruises on her wrists. "There is nowhere you could be taken that I would not follow." He touched her face, then stopped as though he did not believe he had the right. Emma placed her hand over his. Matteo closed his eyes. "I doubted you. Yes. I imprisoned you. Yes. I became the man you feared I was." Emma looked at him. "You also came through a war to admit it." Matteo's forehead touched hers. "Forgive me." "Not yet." His eyes opened. Emma saw the pain. But he nodded. "Then I will earn it." Victor groaned near the altar. He was alive. Emma pulled away from Matteo. "Do not kill him. He took you. He also confessed." She looked toward the recorder, still resting on the table. "Every word is there." Matteo followed her gaze. Emma continued. "Killing him will satisfy your anger. Letting him speak will destroy the network that used both of us." Matteo stared at Victor. His hand remained around Emma's wrist, feeling her pulse. Then he looked back at her. "What do you need?" The question was different now. He was not asking what she could do for him. He was asking what he could do for her. Emma answered. "Trust me." Matteo called his men. Victor was taken alive. Luca was found that evening inside a shipping container at a private terminal. He was bruised, dehydrated, and furious, but alive. Victor's confession revealed that several men inside both families had been working together to provoke a war and seize the Portland routes after Matteo and Enzo destroyed each other. Yet one final danger remained. Victor had prepared a forged agreement for the peace meeting scheduled the following morning. Several copies had already been distributed. If the false treaty was signed, Matteo would unknowingly surrender complete control of the docks. The Bellini family would appear to violate the agreement as soon as they entered the southern terminal. War would begin before anyone discovered the altered language. Matteo wanted to cancel the meeting. Emma refused. Canceling would warn every traitor that Victor had confessed. "Then we expose them," she said. Matteo looked at the bruises on her wrists. "You were taken less than 12 hours ago. I lost 6 years because I remained silent." Emma placed the original translation beside the forged treaty. "I will not lose another day." The final meeting took place in the private dining room where everything had begun. Morning sunlight filled the space. The shattered windows had been replaced. The marble table had been polished. Yet a faint mark remained on the floor where Matteo had knocked Emma behind him during the first attack. Both families entered under heavy guard. Bianca arrived with her father. Her engagement ring was gone. Victor was brought into the room with his hands restrained. Nobody spoke when Emma entered. She wore a white suit over a dark blouse. Her hair fell across her shoulders. The bruises on her wrists remained visible. She did not hide them. Matteo stood at the head of the table. His chair waited beside him. Emma expected him to offer it. Instead, he pulled it into his own position. He placed it at the head of the table. For hair, Matteo moved to the chair beside it. A murmur passed through the room. Emma saw it. The dishwasher now occupied the most powerful seat in Portland. Matteo looked toward both families. "No document will be signed until Emma Brooks confirms every word." Victor laughed quietly. "She already sold you false information." Matteo turned toward him. "I believed that once." Victor's expression sharpened. Matteo continued. "It will be the final mistake I ever make regarding her." Emma opened the treaty. She read the original Italian sentence. Then she read the altered version. One by one, she exposed the changes. A shared terminal had become exclusive ownership. Temporary access had become permanent surrender. Mutual defense had become permission for armed occupation. The room grew colder with every sentence. Enzo Bellini turned toward his attorney. 2 of his guards seized the man. Emma displayed the black circle and silver line. This symbol appears on every altered page. It also appeared on the message that caused the Geneva consulate hostage crisis and on the warning Matteo's father received before his death. Victor remained silent. Emma played the recording from the church. His voice filled the room. The hostage crisis was never about politics. It was about a shipping agreement. The room erupted. Victor attempted to rise. A hidden blade slipped from his sleeve. He did not move toward Emma. He moved toward Luca. Matteo saw it first. He stepped between them. The blade entered Matteo's side. Emma screamed his name. Matteo struck Victor and forced him to the floor. Guards surrounded them. Matteo remained standing for one impossible second. Then blood spread across his white shirt. Emma caught him before he hit the marble. The room blurred around her. Matteo looked up at her from the floor. His face had lost its color. "Did he touch you?" Emma pressed both hands against his wound. "You are bleeding and you are asking about me. Answer." "No, he did not touch me." Matteo released a breath. "Good." His eyes closed. Emma leaned over him. "Matteo, look at me." He opened his eyes again. She saw fear there. Not fear of death. Fear of leaving her. Emma lowered her forehead to his. "You do not get to die after finally learning how to apologize." A faint smile touched his mouth. "I can apologize again. Do it later." His hand covered hers. "Emma, would I believe you?" Tears blurred her vision. She pressed harder against the wound. Then stay alive long enough to prove it. Matteo survived surgery. The blade had missed his liver by less than an inch. Emma remained outside the private hospital room throughout the night. Luca sat beside her with a bandage around his forehead. He looked toward the guarded door. "My brother has never trusted anyone." Emma folded her hands. "He trusted Victor." "No. He inherited Victor." Luca looked at her. Trust was always different for Matteo. It meant giving someone the weapon and believing they would not use it. Emma thought of the dining room. Matteo had given her his chair. He had also given her the power to destroy every agreement he built. Perhaps he had begun trusting her before he knew how to say it. At dawn, a nurse opened the door. "He is awake." Emma entered alone. Matteo rested against white pillows with a bandage around his side. Machines measured his heartbeat. Morning light moved across his face. His eyes opened when she approached. "You stayed. You were unconscious." "That was not my question." Emma sat beside the bed. "I stayed." Matteo extended his hand. She looked at it. No guards. No contracts. No demands. Only an open hand. Emma placed hers inside it. Matteo's fingers closed around her. Victor's confession cleared Emma's name. The original Geneva recordings were recovered from a hidden archive. They proved that Emma's translation had been accurate and Victor had changed it before the response team received it. News organizations that once displayed Emma's photograph beside the word failure now requested interviews. She rejected most of them. She accepted one. Emma sat beneath bright studio lights and told the truth without hiding her body. Her anger, or the years stolen from her. Matteo watched from the hospital. He did not send flowers. Emma had once told him that expensive gestures were often a substitute for listening. Instead, he sent a single page. It contained her original contract. One new sentence had been added beneath his signature. Emma Brooks owes Matteo Romano nothing. When Matteo left the hospital, he ended the political engagement permanently. Bianca family lost access to Romano business. But Emma asked him not to pursue revenge against Bianca. Matteo agreed. His restraint cost him. That was why Emma believed it. The peace agreement with the Bellini family was signed 3 weeks later. Luca left for Denmark before the end of the month. At the airport, Matteo stood beside the security gate with his hands in his coat pockets. He did not tell Luca to stay. He did not tell him to remember the cost. He hugged his brother in front of everyone. Emma watched from several feet away. Matteo looked over Luca's shoulder and found her. The silent gratitude in his eyes warmed something inside her. Luca walked toward the gate. Matteo remained still until he disappeared. Emma moved beside him. You gave him freedom. Matteo looked at the empty passage. You taught me it is not freedom if the door remains locked. Emma slipped her hand into his. Matteo stared down at their joined fingers. He did not smile. His grip tightened. It was more honest than a smile. 6 months later, Emma opened an independent interpretation institute near the Portland riverfront. The institute provided legal support and professional training for translators accused of misconduct without a fair review. Matteo offered to purchase the building. Emma refused. He offered to arrange security. She accepted 2 guards during evening classes. They negotiated everything. Neither of them considered that romantic. Both of them secretly did. Matteo did not become gentle with the world. Men still lowered their voices when he entered a room. Rivals still feared his silence. Betrayal still received consequences. Yet with Emma, he learned restraint that did not come from control. He asked before sending guards. He explained before changing plans. He admitted when fear disguised itself as anger. Emma did not become fearless. She sometimes woke from dreams of the Geneva crisis. She sometimes froze when a telephone rang in an unfamiliar room. On those nights, Matteo sat beside her without touching her until she reached for him. He never told her to forget. He stayed while she remembered. Their first kiss happened inside the restaurant kitchen where Emma had once washed dishes. The restaurant had closed for the evening. Emma stood beside the stainless steel sink while Matteo leaned against the counter in his black shirt. He had come to invite her to dinner. She had made him wait while she helped a former co-worker finish cleaning. Matteo looked at the stacks of plates. You spent years here. Yes. Nobody knew who you were. I knew. He moved closer. Emma looked up at him. What did you come here to say? Matteo spoke in Italian. I was a cruel man who mistook invisibility for insignificance. Emma listened. His pronunciation was flawless. I believed power gave me the right to judge a woman before hearing her voice. He stopped in front of her. Then she answered me. And nothing in my world remained in the correct language. Emma's heart beat faster. That last sentence is grammatically questionable. Matteo placed one hand beside her on the counter. Correct it. She lifted her chin. You should say that nothing in your world made sense until I spoke. His eyes darkened. Nothing in my world made sense until you spoke. Emma rested her hand against his chest. His heartbeat accelerated beneath her palm. Are you mocking me again? Mr. Romano. Never again. The answer came without hesitation. Emma looked at the feared man who had once laughed at her uniform. She saw his arrogance, his scars, his violence, and the devotion he had never learned to hide from her. She saw the man who had doubted her. She also saw the man who had crossed a city to find her, surrendered his weapon, and asked what she needed instead of deciding for her. Emma touched his face. I forgive you. Matteo closed his eyes. The words seemed to strike deeper than any blade. When he opened them, his control was gone. He lowered his mouth to hers. The kiss was slow at first. Careful. A question rather than a claim. Emma pulled him closer. Matteo's hand moved to her waist. His other hand cupped the back of her neck as though he still remembered holding her beneath broken glass. The kiss deepened. Every restrained glance, every interrupted moment, and every argument they had survived burned between them. When they separated, Matteo kept his forehead against hers. Come home with me. Emma smiled. Your home or my home? Matteo considered the question seriously. Yours has fewer secure rooms. That is why I prefer it. He kissed her again. Outside, black vehicles waited beneath the bright restaurant lights. Inside, steam rose from the last sink of clean dishes. Emma looked around the kitchen where she had learned how to disappear. She no longer hated it. This room had not made her invisible. The people inside it had simply failed to see her. Matteo saw her now. Not as the woman who saved his agreement. Not as the interpreter who exposed his enemies. Not as someone fragile he needed to place behind locked gates. He saw the woman who challenged him, corrected him, frightened him, and taught him that trust could not be commanded. Matteo lifted her hand and pressed his lips to her bruised wrist, where the marks from Victor ropes had finally begun to fade. "I spent my life believing love made a man vulnerable," he said. Emma watched him. "Were you wrong?" Matteo looked toward the dark windows, where his guards waited and the city stretched beyond them. Then he returned his gaze to her. "No." His hand tightened around hers. "Love makes me vulnerable." The old Matteo would have hated the admission. The man standing before her accepted it. Matteo continued, "But losing you would make me something worse." Emma touched his cheek. "Then do not lose me." He kissed the center of her palm. "Never." The following spring, Emma stood inside the private dining room once more. Sunlight filled the windows. A new international agreement rested on the marble table. Representatives from several cities waited for her translation. Matteo sat beside her, not at the head of the table. The most powerful chair belonged to Emma. A young server entered with a tray and hesitated near the door. One of the visiting businessmen made a dismissive remark in French about the nervous girl. Emma heard it. Before she could respond, Matteo turned toward the man. "The server understands you." The businessman became pale. The young woman lifted her head. Matteo continued in flawless French. "You should assume every person in this room is more intelligent than you until they prove otherwise." Emma looked at him. His accent had improved. His manners had improved more. The server hid a smile and placed down the tray. Matteo leaned closer to Emma. "Was that correct? Almost?" "What did I miss?" Emma lowered her voice. "You forgot to apologize." Matteo looked toward the young server. "I apologize." The entire table went silent. Emma smiled. Matteo reached beneath the table and took her hand. Nobody laughed. Nobody questioned why the feared mafia boss sat beside a plus-size former dishwasher and waited for her approval before signing his most important agreements. Everyone in Portland knew the answer. Emma Brooks had once corrected a single sentence. In doing so, she saved Luca life, exposed a hidden war, and forced Matteo Romano to confront the cruelty he had mistaken for strength. Matteo had ruled through fear for most of his life. Emma never feared him enough to become silent. That was why he trusted her. That was why he loved her. That was why every word spoken in his world passed through her before it became truth. And when the meeting ended, Matteo did not order Emma to follow him. He waited beside the open door. Emma gathered her papers and walked toward him by choice. Together, they stepped into the bright Portland afternoon. The black vehicles followed at a distance. Matteo's hand rested at the small of her back. Protective, but never forcing. Emma looked up at him. He spoke softly in Italian. "My life belongs beside yours." Emma pretended to consider the translation. Matteo waited. For once, the most dangerous man in the city looked uncertain. Emma smiled. "That sentence is perfect." Then she rose onto her toes and kissed him beneath the sunlight, while the city that once treated her as invisible watched its most feared man hold her as though she were the only truth he had ever trusted.